All right, welcome back. We are going to listen to the next portion of the lecture. While you guys are doing that, I'm going to do the next portion of your homework and grade it and get it back to you before you guys get out of class today. So when we left off, basically, Germany had conquered the vast majority of Europe. They've conquered Denmark, Norway, Belgium, Luxembourg, and also the Netherlands. And now they're looking at France. And France is going to have to surrender to the Germans pretty quickly. The vast majority of the citizens do not support Nazis, and they're going to be relatively upset about the surrender. But there really truly is nothing they can do. The German army is just so superior at this time period. What you do have is you do have resistant movements that are going to be formed. One of the leaders of the resistance movements is going to be Charles de Gaulle. He eventually is going to become a world famous leader from France. But what he's going to do is urge citizens to resist the Nazis and sort of fight them from within. Germany then is going to turn towards the next conquest, and that's going to be Great Britain. So they're going to attempt to get across the English Channel in what we're going to basically be known as a Battle of Britain. The Battle of Britain is going to be one of the first big air battles that we're going to see in World War II, predominantly because the German Navy is going to be used to try to have a sea-land invasion of Britain in order to conquer it. The only problem is they're having a hard time actually getting across the English Channel because the British Air Force, also known as the RAF, is the largest air force in the world and is basically just bombing the German boats as they're coming across. Germany, in response to this, is going to start their own air force in order to try to fight the British in the air. The result of it is going to be a lot of dogfights, but Great Britain is able to maintain supremacy of the air, which means they also are going to be able to maintain supremacy of the sea. So Great Britain is going to also be able to fight the Germans using a new technology, which is radar. And the radar basically is going to allow them to find the German planes relatively easily. Hitler is losing a lot of his navy. He's losing a lot of his air force. So he decides that he's going to abandon the Battle of Britain, and it's going to then take a look at conquering the Soviet Union. At the same time, and this is all going on the other side of the ocean, we've got activity going on with Japan as well. The United States, after World War I, is going to go back to our old pattern of following a foreign policy based on isolationism. We don't want to get involved in another European entanglement. A lot of men died, and there was a lot of disaster during World War I. Economically, it was good for us, but in the long run, ends up being bad. We're all in the Great Depression, so things are not looking good. So we want to help the Allies. So Congress is going to pass the Lend-Lease Act, which is going to allow President Roosevelt to transfer arms and other vital military materials to any country that needs it for their own national security. With the Land-Lease Act, we're going to be able to give them support without actually getting involved in the battle. So Britain and also China are going to receive weapons, tanks, airplanes, and also food. With the invasion of Britain canceled, the Soviet Union is next going to be on the next target for Hitler. There's over 3 million German soldiers that are actually able to just kind of move across Germany and now fight the Soviets. Germany are advancing very quickly towards Moscow. The Soviet Union also is going to be extended the Land-Lease Act as well, and now we actually are going to have this two-front war. Now, in terms of the two-front war, again, France has surrendered, but you just have a little bit of resistance movement. But you don't really need a large number of German soldiers inside of France to maintain control of the area. So this allows the vast majority of people to move across and actually fight the Russians. On the other side of the world, we're going to start to see activity with Japan. Germany is very, very concerned the United States is going to join the war. They've conquered the vast majority of Europe. The only places they've not conquered to this point are the Soviet Union and also Great Britain. So most people are thinking the United States are going to get involved at some point. Germany needs to have some protection for that. So September of 1940, they're going to sign the Tripartite Pact, which is Germany, Italy, and Japan. And basically, it's going to say mutual defense if attacked. And this is sort of in a hope that the United States does not get into this war. The United States knows that they go over and actually start to physically attack Germany inside of Europe, then Japan potentially can attack the United States here. So this is their hope for the United States not to actually get involved in this war. In response to this act, we actually are going to stop selling oil and other raw materials to Japan. Japan needs to maintain their access to oil. They need it to complete their industrialization, and they also need it to maintain supremacy of their newly acquired empire. So Japan is going to start to have rumors. We're starting to hear rumors about Japan planning an attack on the United States. Most people believe that the attack is actually going to be in the U.S. protectorates, which are going to be in the Philippines or Manila. We do intercept a message that says the attack is going to be in Pearl Harbor, but we do not believe that there's any way Japan actually is going to be able to reach Pearl Harbor from their mainland, so we don't really deal with it. Japan is also going to send a diplomat to talk to the United States to make sure that we are not going to have any further aggression or further expansion, and make sure again that we're going to hopefully start to sell oil with them again. We do not have this meeting. The United States refuses to talk to the Japanese diplomat. While they're actually in this meeting, Pearl Harbor was already planned, and the attack basically was already being launched. So December 7th of 1942 at 7:55 a.m., Japanese planes are going to attack the Pacific Fleet. It's located inside of Pearl Harbor. The U.S. is expecting a large number of airplanes to be coming to Pearl Harbor. We think there are American planes coming. So when they come up on the radar, people are not really too concerned about this large number of planes coming in. They also are coming in very early in the morning. It's a Sunday. A lot of soldiers are sleeping. People are not on high alert. And basically, the goal of the Japanese Air Force was to destroy the U.S. naval fleet, and so they can continue their expansion. There are a lot of questions about Pearl Harbor in terms of why there were so many U.S. naval ships in one spot. That's one of the basic things you learn when you study military tactics, is you don't leave all of your Army or your Navy or your Air Force in one place. But the mass majority of the Pacific Fleet, it was actually moved from San Diego to Pearl Harbor. The only thing that was not there was U.S. aircraft carriers, which is another reason why there's some conspiracy, why some people believe maybe the U.S. government potentially could have known the attack on Pearl Harbor actually was the real attack. The aircraft carriers are actually going to allow planes to be launched off of the naval ships, and those are going to be the most beneficial in a time of war. And we do also know at this time the New Deal programs are not working to get out of the Great Depression, but war, as we know, is very economically profitable. So maybe Congress and the president are trying to pull the United States into the war in order to get us out of the Great Depression. The war is going to create millions of jobs for American citizens. Again, Americans would not have agreed to enter this war unless we were directly attacked. And that's going to be one of the results of World War I. We don't want to get involved in European entanglements anymore. And again, all the evidence of if this was a planned attack that we are aware of is very circumstantial. There's nothing that actually points to the fact that we did 100% know the attack and that it was something that was done in order to pull us into this war. The causes of World War I are the exact same things as causes of World War II. With militarism, people are building large armies and navies. They want to use them. Alliance system, we have the Axis powers, the Allied powers, and you also have the Nazi-Soviet pact. There's imperialism. Italy is trying to expand in Ethiopia. Germany is trying to expand in Europe. And Japan is trying to expand in Asia. And then also nationalism. Germany and Japan want to restore their countries to greatness after losing World War I. So here in the United States, we are preparing for this war. We are building all kinds of war materials, and we are going to start to see a large number of men enter into the armed services, and that means, again, women are going to replace them in the factories. World War II is going to end the Great Depression. It is not the New Deal. It is not the Second New Deal. It is World War II. Unemployment is gradually going to start to decrease, so by 1944, unemployment rate is going to be down to 1%, which means that business cycle has been restarted, and we're going to be working our way out of the Depression. The War Production Board is going to be created to oversee the conversion of factories to war supplies, and also to encourage people to support the war effort from home. So you should be doing lots of things at home, like rationing, limiting your gas, your food, your clothing, limiting what you buy, trying not to buy too much meat, sugar, fat, butter, vegetables, or fruit, because all those things can be sent over to the soldiers to help the war effort. So anything you could do at home is going to be beneficial to the war effort overseas. We're going to have all kinds of collection of things, tires and scrap metal, anything that can be changed into a weapon or used or melted down to be part of a weapon was going to be collected and donated to the Army. You're also going to have lots of posters urging people to do less so they can have more with your soldiers. And again, we're going to return to selling of war bonds. Thousands of people are going to start to volunteer for the armed forces, but it's not enough. We know World War I was very destructive. World War II also is going to be destructive. So we're going to sign the Selective Service Act, which is going to require all men from the ages of 21 and 31. And later that actual age is going to be dropped to 18 to 30 to register for the draft. So by the time this whole entire thing is over, you're going to have over 16 million Americans served during World War II. Women as well are going to be involved in the workforce and in the war effort. Again, same thing that we saw in World War I. But this time we've got bigger propaganda for it. So Rosie the Riveter is going to be a governmental campaign to recruit women in order to make airplanes and other military munitions. We also are going to have a very patriotic way to support the war at home. So people, again, are going to be willing to do anything in order to support the war effort. Minority groups as well are going to get involved. The exact same thing we happened in World War I happens here as well. African Americans are going to be part of the Great Migration. They move north to become factory workers. You're also going to receive lower pay and be restricted from some jobs, but the mass majority of times it's going to be better opportunities in the north than you had in the south. And African Americans as well are going to serve in segregated units in the armed forces. The exact same thing is going to be said for Mexican Americans as well. They're going to work in wartime factories. People are going to be guaranteed minimum wage, food, shelter, and clean working condition on farms, and then you're also going to see Mexican Americans served in the armed forces. Japanese Americans are going to have a totally different experience in World War II. It is going to be one based upon discrimination and prejudice. Lots of people are a little bit unsure if Japanese Americans are going to be loyal to the emperor in Japan or loyal to the United States, and as a result of that, the government is going to pass Executive Order 9066. Basically says that all Japanese Americans would be forced to relocate and be imprisoned in internment camps. These internment camps predominantly are going to be on the West Coast in San Francisco. They are going to include all legal aliens, illegal aliens, and also all U.S. citizens. So we have basically, went over the Bill of Rights and denied them their rights. They're going to be excluded from joining the armed forces, and they are basically going to be in these internment camps until the end of the war. It's not going to be until 1988 under President Ronald Reagan when he's going to sign the Civil Liberties Act, which is actually going to pay $20,000 to each surviving detainee and apologize for discriminatory actions. The war in Europe is going to be continuing on while we are getting ready for war here in the United States and fighting the Japanese. So the U.S. officially is going to declare war, and we're going to have a two-pronged approach. First, we're going to try to attempt to win the war inside of Europe, and then after we win the war in Europe and defeat the Nazis, we are going to turn to Japan and try to defeat the Japanese. So U.S. troops are going to first arrive to the British, and they're going to help the British and the French attack Northern Africa. World War I, same as World War II, it is a full war, so it's also going to help include your colonies. So basically the idea here was if we can get control of the colonies inside of Northern Africa, we would then be able to launch an attack from Northern Africa into Italy, defeat Mussolini, and then from Italy be able to move on to defeat the rest of Germany and basically liberate the rest of Europe. The only problem with Northern Africa was it's going to have to be dealing with going over the Alps once you actually get into Italy. The reason why we're not using a frontal attack against the Germans is they have built the Atlantic Wall, which is over 2,000 miles of very strong defenses that is going to be all along the Atlantic Ocean. On June 1st, in 1955, Italy actually is going to be forced to surrender, and then Mussolini is going to be executed. We are now also going to see again movement towards the Soviet Union. So Hitler is going to violate the Nazi-Soviet Pact, which was supposed to avoid this two-front war. He violates it because the Soviet Union could provide food and natural resources that Germany actually needs if they are going to continue the war effort and potentially win the war. Germany is again going to be using the same blitzkrieg attack, and they're going to be able to get basically pretty far into Soviet territory. The German supply lines, however, are going to be stretched relatively thin when they're planning to go deep into Russia. Again, same idea we saw before. We're going to be able to defeat the Russians very, very quickly and avoid the Russian winter. It doesn't work. Someone's going to use a scorched earth policy where they are basically going to destroy farms and factories and anything that the German army potentially can be used for natural resources, food, or shelter. Germans then are going to be able to take control of Leningrad. However, at this time period, they make a bad decision. They split the army into three separate parts. One goes to Moscow, one goes to Kiev, and basically now I've even stretched my supply lines even further, the Russian winter is going to hit, which slows the German attack down. So Germany's going to conquer Kiev, but they're going to be stopped at Stalingrad. Stalingrad is where the Russians are going to make their last stand and basically say that you're not going to be able to get any farther into Soviet territory after Stalingrad. All right, so that's the end of this part. Hopefully by now I have your homework done, and I'll give it back to you, and then we can move on to section 3. All right, I'll see you guys later.